Hi, I'm Rob Zimmer, the owner of Spectrum Advertising. The Valley owes a lot to the memory of Wayne Van De Graaff. He was a true visionary, a man with a big heart that made a great impression on me and a lot of people around the Valley. To honor the memory of Wayne Van De Graaff and his contribution to the Imperial Valley, Ivy Newsday has pulled video from his Spectrum Advertising archives. Wayne talked me into producing a video over 20 years ago to help the community know what the Calexico Orthopedic Center was all about and to solicit help so the clinic can remain in business. Wayne and his friend Dr. Nichols were the driving force in establishing this clinic. Please watch this video to see how important it was to him and me and the community.
The clinic really started by the fact that a little child, he was about two and a half years old, and he was involved in a fire. His little shanty made out of cardboard burned down. The kids, other children all got out, the parents got out, but they thought the baby had perished. And the next morning they were going through the rubble trying to salvage what they could through the ashes, and they heard this voice of the little child cry, and they dug him out. Makes me want to cry to think about it. And they thought he was going to die at any time. The top of his head was burned off, and his hands were burned, his fingers burned down, and his shoulders, all across the shoulders, but he never died. They kept nourishing him and thinking any day he would be dead. But he grew to be about 6 years old, and he was seen by an elderly doctor who was a tourist down in the Mexican area, and he saw this little pitiful thing with scab all over his head, no scars, no normal appearance at all. So he brought him to Los Angeles to my clinic. I was in the orthopedic hospital, and I had a clinic at that time, and he introduced me to the little guy. He was now about 6 years old, as Ronaldo, and could anything be done? And well, to make a long story short, we started operating. Several operations later, we had made hands for him, fingers. We grafted the scalp, so he had a covering on his skull, and freed up his shoulders, and it took several operations, and he stayed at our house, my wife and I, between surgeries, and he got to be a fascinating little guy, very cute, as a matter of fact, with a terrific personality. Learned English in the meantime, and I took him down to Max Factor, and I told them the story, and they agreed to make him a toupee, and he was just a beautiful little kid. And so when we took him back, I hated to see him come back, but when we took him back to his mother, she was emotionally overwhelmed, because she never expected to see him again, actually. And she just hugged and loved him, and he was her little boy, and he just looked so good, and he was all back to normal, apparently. So we were happy about it too. This is our first patient down here, and we never anticipated we'd have others. But she said, incidentally, in her Spanish with our interpreters and all, could you see some other children who have problems? And my wife and I said, sure, we have some time. You know somebody else? She disappeared, and in about 5 minutes returned with 5 children, crippled children, unable to walk, from her community, her little neighborhood. And needless to say, we were overwhelmed and impressed with this problem in her little neighborhood. So I said, I examined these kids, cursorily, and I said, bring the children to the immigration office next Saturday, and I will be there, and I'll make arrangements to get them up to the hospitals and and take care of their problems. And incidentally, if you have any other little children that you want to bring them up there. I came the next Saturday to the immigration office, and you can imagine one of the chief immigration inspectors says, "Are you Dr. Nichols?" And I said, "Yes, why?" "Well, I want you to look out the back here." And I went over and I looked out, and as far as you could see were crippled children in market baskets, carried in mother's arms. Well, we processed 225 children that day. Just by word of mouth, this mother had gotten, I guess, friends and acquaintances, and we're told that they could get, the Yankee doctor was going to be down and you could have free care. So my wife and I processed 226 actually, and all we could do would be to examine them, diagnose them, make 3x5 cards of how to get in touch with them, and we decided, my golly, there's a need here. So we considered this our life's project, so to speak, to take care of these 226 kids, and we thought we could probably do 5 or 6 at a time. Well, in the meantime, things grew to enormous proportions, and well, to date, we've taken care of over 70,000. So we have a big family. And it's the kind of thing that it touches us. We look at these, some of them, this has gone on 32 years now. Some of them grown, have children, and it's a wonderful thing, we think.
My first association with Dr. Nichols is when he walked through the doors at the U.S. Immigration Office in Calexico. I was the duty officer, and I asked him what I could help him with. And he said, well, I needed someone to interpret for me for 3 crippled children. We did that, and after we completed the examination, he asked if my wife and I could go to lunch with his wife and himself, which we did. And he asked me about the conditions at the border, and I told him that there was a lot of problems like this. And he asked me if there was some way we could work together to resolve some of these problems. He said he would take care of things in Los Angeles if I could take care of things on the border and in Mexicali. And that was the beginning of our relationship. And it's come a long, long ways. And it's basically the opportunity we had was because I was an immigration officer, and we had the backing of the Immigration Service to help these children.
Actually, we saw the kids in the immigration office the first couple of years, but we just couldn't get caught up with them. And we were told that we couldn't, people were complaining that we were using the government offices for this. So Wayne got us a building. A man owned this dual building up here, a real nice Mexican fella, and it was abandoned apparently. And so Wayne got us this building, and that was our first building, and we were in there rent-free and saw 100 to 150 kids every weekend. In the meantime, had lots of other doctors, volunteers, the whole thing run by volunteers, no paid employees. But we saw 100 to 150 kids a weekend, made house calls, and took up 8 or 10 at a time that needed the surgery. And now I've got about 25 beds, free beds in the LA area where we just keep them full all the time.
Well, I find that Dr. Nichols is very much a Christian person. He wants to do what best he can for humanity, and he feels that this is his mission in life. Dr. Nichols never took anything, he gave, and he gave with all his heart and soul. And he's still doing it. This clinic would not be operating if it wasn't for Dr. Nichols. It's costing us about $15,000 a month now to operate this clinic, and probably $13,000 of it a month comes from Dr. Nichols and what he's able to do to raise that money.
I kept track of the number of children that we were getting walking, that were crawling, that were unable to walk, up until about 12 years ago, and we were up to 50,000. And I don't know, I didn't keep track after that, but we must be up to 70, maybe 75,000 children now, because and we've expanded the thing to where now we're doing any kids with cross eyes or eye disturbances of any kind. We have free beds at the Queen of Angels Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital where they operate on the eyes. They send a crew down here to see eye cases. We have cleft palate and hair lip cases that we have plastic surgeons take care of now. We have hearing difficulties. Dr. House, the professor of audiology or eye or nose and throat or ear, nose and throat, developed a program for the kids that can't hear good or have a hearing difficulty. And we even take heart cases. We've had cases go to St. Vincent's where they have a tremendous heart program, and we got that corrected. Of course, we're mostly orthopedics. I'm an orthopedist, and we have some 16 volunteer orthopedic doctors all the time coming down and running the clinic and taking care of things at the present time. Besides these other super specialists, it's a big thing, and by a big thing I mean if we had to pay, if these kids had to pay, or if anybody had to pay for these beds, it would be staggering sum. But we get them all free. The doctors are volunteers, the nurses, the brace makers, the intake workers. We have a wonderful crew of volunteer people.
And this has been his mission, is to help these crippled children. So I've never met a humanitarian like Dr. Robert Nichols.
I'll tell you what the future holds now. We were discussing even this morning, Wayne and I, we're going to build a dental part. 3 more rooms out here, if we can raise enough money to put in a whole dental, because a lot of the kids that we bring up have dental caries, you know, decayed teeth and need dental care. So we're planning, our next step is to put in a dental program here, and that'll be in the next few months. We're going to have to add to the building here. And the eye people want to do some surgeries down here. We don't really have a facility to operate here unless it's just very minor stuff. So we want to put in a room for the eye people that they can do certain eye procedures here safely and do follow-up cares and things of that sort. Our motto here, Wayne devised it, where hope meets help. You know, in other words, these people, some of these kids go through life, they would go through life as begging on the street. They would grow up crippled and begging on the street because they wouldn't be able to make a living. When you can send them back, and we got them, we've got some that are lawyers, they've gone back to school and they've become attorneys. We've got bookkeepers, and we've got teachers that go back. We make them go to school. Once we get them so they're up and around like other kids, one of our requirements is go to school, learn, you know. And we've had tremendous success in that regard. I just think it's something that has to be done, that's all.